trying to lower my taxes. What can I do to lower my taxes? Especially at the end of the year, they're like, what can I spend money on to lower my taxes? And I always challenge, like, why are you trying to lower your taxes? Why shouldn't I? Taxes are bad. They followed the script. The script is taxes are bad. More profit is better than less taxes. I would always rather pay more taxes if it means I have more profit and more cash available to me. Hey, business owners, welcome back to the Wealthy Business Owner series, where we're really diving into what does it mean to be good with money and what does it mean to be a wealthy business owner? Because those two things are not mutually exclusive. If you've been following along, you'll know that we've been diving into all the rules, what it means to be good with money, what it means to be bad with money, examining where did those rules come from? Who are those rules for? Are they useful? And can we actually start pushing past it? So we've talked about spending, we've talked about managing, we've talked about saving. Today, we're going to be talking about investing. As I was sitting down and thinking about what do I want to talk about in this episode? What do I want to kind of touch on? Quite a few things came out because there are a lot of rules for what it means to be good with money and good at investing. And these are the ones I came out with. Being good at investing means you never touch it, right? Have you ever heard that advice? Never touch your investments. Let them sit, let them grow. It means that penalties are bad. Right? That's another rule. Don't pay penalties, avoid paying penalties. And that kind of comes back to don't touch it. Don't take money out of your retirement accounts before, the age of that you can take it out, because otherwise you'll get charged a penalty. Be careful about how much money you put into your child's 529 plan, because if they don't go to college, you're going to get charged a penalty. So penalties are bad. Never touch it. Max out your tax advantage accounts first. So this is going to be different depending on the country that you live in, but pretty much every country has tax advantage accounts specifically for retirement or education. In the United States, we have 401ks, we have Roth IRAs, we have SEP IRAs, we have all these different things. In Canada, you have your RRSP or your TFSA. In the UK, you have your SIP. Someone who's good with money tends to want to max out all of those accounts first. And then the other kind of rule that I was thinking on as I was thinking about this episode is taxes are bad, lower your taxes as much as possible. And that kind of goes two ways. That kind of goes on the taxes are bad. So try to lower your taxes when you sell your asset on your capital gains, but also taxes are bad. So you should use your tax advantage accounts to lower your taxes in this tax year as much as possible. All of these rules for what makes someone good with money, good at investing, make sense, right? They're not dumb rules. They're not illogical. I do a lot of these things for sure, but they're very specific and they're very descriptive, right? They're very much like, here's what you should and shouldn't do with your investment accounts. And although that's fine and that's great, a wealthy entrepreneur takes it a step further, takes it a lot of a step further. A wealthy entrepreneur knows that they have access to their investments at any given moment, even if it's in an account that has a penalty. A wealthy entrepreneur knows that they can use the money in their investment accounts at any time, especially if it's to seize a really good opportunity. This goes back to the spending episode that we did, where we talked about how a wealthy entrepreneur doesn't strive to spend less. They strive to spend more on high ROI activities. Same thing goes for investments. Now, personally, I have kind of two tracks. In my mind, I view investing as two separate tracks. I have my retirement track, which very much does follow the rules that I laid out earlier, right? In my retirement track for my investments, I am striving to leave them in low-cost index funds for decades. I'm not trying to mess around with them. I'm not touching them. I avoid taking money out of those accounts at all cost. I do. I let them sit. I don't want to, incur any penalties on those accounts. I'm trying to use those accounts to lower my taxes. I am doing that. And that's fine and great and good, right? That's good with money. I have my good with money track and I have accounts that are funded for my retirement that just sit and ride. My second track for investing is my taxable brokerage. Now, a taxable brokerage, if you don't know what that means, it just means an account where I can put money in and invest it in the market or invest it in bonds or whatever. And I can use that money at any time. There's no maximum annual contributions. I can put however much money I want in. I can take however much money I want out whenever I want to take it out. And there's no penalty. I just have to pay tax on the gains. Now, I teach my clients that your taxable brokerage can be for anything you want, literally anything that you want. I have spent money from my taxable brokerage on the most insane things. I have used that money to buy cars. I've used that money to buy gifts. I've used that money to reinvest in my business. I've used that money to buy a house. And I'm constantly using that money and then reinvesting more money in. It's almost like a secondary savings account to me. And I have no qualms with using that money. And because I have no qualms with using that money, because I'm breaking the rules, right? What is the rule? Don't touch your investments. I do not subscribe to that rule in my taxable brokerage. I have been able to grow my wealth. I have been able to seize opportunities I wouldn't have otherwise been able to seize if I were following the rule, don't touch your investments. I've also paid penalties. I have taken money out of investment accounts that are supposed to be tied up to capture or seize another opportunity. And I have paid the penalty because going back to spending, a wealthy entrepreneur doesn't strive to spend less. A wealthy entrepreneur doesn't strive to lower taxes. A wealthy entrepreneur doesn't strive to avoid penalties. A wealthy entrepreneur strives to get a high return on investment on opportunities when available to them. So my thought process is always, okay, let's say I took money out of an account that had a 10% penalty. Well, am I going to use the money on something that will make me more than that? And then some, right? Will it pay for the penalty and then some? If the answer is yes, it will pay for the penalty and then some, then why would I follow the rule? Why would I follow the rule? Never touch your investments. This is how wealthy entrepreneurs are thinking. This is how wealthy business owners are thinking. Same goes for taxes. I talk to my clients all the time about this, where they're like, I'm just trying to lower my taxes. What can I do to lower my taxes? Especially at the end of the year, they're like, what can I spend money on to lower my taxes? And I always challenge, like, why are you trying to lower your taxes? Really, why? And they'll say, well, why shouldn't I? Taxes are bad, right? They followed the script. The script is taxes are bad. And of course, you should do everything that you can to lower your taxes. And that's the only reason that they have for me. And I always push back and I say, more profit is better than less taxes. I would always rather pay more taxes if it means I have more profit and more cash available to me. I will always pay more taxes. Same thing with investments. I had a client who had a big chunk of stocks from a company that she used to work at, and they were worth about $300,000. And she was terrified of taking the money out because she knew that the moment she sold the stocks, she would get a big tax bill. So she was terrified of taking the money out, and she let it sit there for years and years and years, paralyzed because of the tax implication. And we sat down and we did some rough back of the napkin, tax estimates. And I said, okay, for this batch of stocks, you're probably going to owe about this much tax. So all you would have to do is when you sell the stock, set aside that money for tax, and then you're good to go. When we laid it out, she was like, oh, that's what I've been afraid of this whole time. But because she's following the rule, taxes are bad, we end up blindly following without actually realizing what we're doing. And that's why I'm creating this series. That's why we're challenging these rules. Are taxes actually bad if you made a ton of money in the process? No, a wealthy entrepreneur would always take the money for the cost of higher taxes. On that note, let's come back to maxing out your tax advantage accounts, right? You should always max out your tax advantage accounts first, and then if you have more money, you can invest in a taxable brokerage. I am going to push against that for multiple reasons, right? Again, it's not that these rules are bad. These rules help make people millionaires. These rules are very helpful. But if you want to be a wealthy business owner, we have to push past them. I'll come back to maxing out tax advantage accounts. I have maxed out my SEP IRA for the last 2 years. And a SEP IRA, for those of you who don't know, is just an IRA for business owners where we can invest money in them. And when you do that, it lowers your taxes this year. So I've maxed them out the last 2 years. And this year, I'm not planning on maxing it out. Why, Gina? I'm planning on actually taking that money and putting it in my taxable brokerage instead. Why? Why would I do that? Because next year, I'm planning on buying a house, or I'm planning to be ready to buy a house. I've talked about that on the podcast. I don't know if we'll buy one. I don't know if we'll find one that we really like, but I want to be ready to buy a house. So if I put another $70,000 in my SEP IRA, I won't be able to get that money out without paying a 10% penalty. And if I know, right, I'm already knowing I'm probably going to use that money, I would rather have it in the taxable brokerage and not get the tax benefit this year, but have the available cash ready to buy the home next year. So I'm thinking about, what do I want, right? What do I want? And then how can I best achieve that regardless of these rules of good or bad with money? Someone who's good with money would say, Gina, you should just max out your SEP IRA. And if you have money left, then put it in the taxable brokerage. And that's what you could use to buy a house. I am sitting here thinking, no, what is my strategy for my goals in the time frame that I want, knowing my retirement is already on track. I don't actually have to add more money to my retirement to retire with over $10 million. So adding another $70,000 today, like, it would be great. It's definitely going to earn a lot more money, but I would rather buy a house this year. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to break these rules. I'm not going to get the tax advantage. I'm not maxing out my tax advantaged accounts, and I'm breaking the rule again by being willing to spend the money that I invested in my taxable brokerage to buy the house later on. I'm breaking every single one of the rules. But would you say I'm being bad with money? Someone might say Gina's being really irresponsible and bad with money. And I would say I'm acting like a wealthy business owner. Wealthy business owners take charge in their decisions, especially around investing and wealth building. They take charge in their decisions. They have reasoning to back it up. And it's okay if it breaks the rules. All right. So that is how wealthy business owners think about investing. I think that as we go through this series, all of this builds on itself, right? And I don't want you to walk away from this series thinking, okay, I'm doing it wrong if I'm just doing the thing that, good people with money do. You're not doing it wrong. It's just that you can push yourself further. I was good with money for a long time, just good with money, especially when I was an employee. When I was an employee, my thought process around investing was completely different. I did follow all those rules. I maxed out my 401k every year. I made sure that I was getting my company match. I invested that money in low-cost index funds, and I never touched it. I never took the money out. I never took a loan against my 401k. I made sure that I was getting all my employee benefits. I was getting RSUs, restricted stock units, getting them granted, and I would sell them and re-diversify them right away. I was making sure I was maxing out my ESPP, which is Employee Stock Purchase Program, where you can buy company stock at a 15% discount. I was doing all the things. I was making sure I was maxing out the tax advantage accounts. I was not getting any penalties. I wasn't touching it. I was never planning on touching it. I did the good with money thing. I'm so glad I did that. I want to be clear. I am so glad I did that because that set me up with my retirement track in my investments. But I would not be where I am today if I didn't push past that and start breaking those rules. I would not be where I am. I would have never owned a home. I would have never grown my business to this level. I would have never thought of using my taxable brokerage for anything, right? I would have just said, don't touch it. It's there not to touch. And I would have continued slowly growing instead of growing at the pace that I've grown now. And so again, it's not to say, I don't want to shame you if you're doing the things that are good with money. Those are really important rules, but they're not the final step. If you want to become a wealthy business owner, we have to do things that are outside of the norm. Okay? All right. I'll see you guys in the next episode.